is on track to be a swing backup offensive tackle, has experience at guard as well. And finally, learning more about the inside linebackers. Josh Gill returned from injury to practice recently, but with Jones, Todd Davis still out, Watson, Johnson, Hollins, Bierria, Denning, and converted safety Jamal Carter will see plenty of reps at linebacker as well.
All right. And this time, we really are going to close out the Saturday games. A 10 o'clock kickoff on the NFL Network. Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson. It is the Seattle Seahawks, LA Chargers, and Justin. Again, I don't know how you're going to do this because for the third straight week, the Seattle Seahawks superfan didn't do a write-up. But even before you get into all this, just a couple of notes I wrote here on the Chargers. They lost Derwin James with an injury. He's expected to be out for quite some time. Melvin Gordon's holdouts being reported this morning could last into the season. And before the preseason began and before we did our season previews, we did our power rankings for all the teams, and the Chargers were placed at 7. Is it time to already drop them, and how far do we drop them? Do we drop them below the Raiders and the Broncos?
To answer your question, no, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, the Melvin Gordon thing is not a big deal because running backs don't matter. And two, I believe week 10
Shame on you.
Quiet you. Week 10 is when we're supposed to drop them every year because that's when they decide to implode. So let's wait until then. They're a top 10 team until then they're a bottom 5 team after week 10. That's just the Chargers' way.
All right. Maybe. When we say running backs don't matter, I mean, I'm looking at a depth chart of Austin. I mean, they're talking about Austin Eckler is going to be their starter. He's not a starting running back. He's a change of pace, third down kind of guy. That means it's Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson.
Yeah, and since it's still a quarterback-driven league, I really couldn't care less.
All right.
Keep in mind, Austin Eckler has averaged more than 5 yards a carry his entire career. And he's a backup, and so who cares?
Wow. All right.
Yeah, but he won't do that in the starting role.
And which has been shown time and time again to, even if he does it, it doesn't actually affect the odds of the Chargers winning football games. That's just not simply how the NFL works anymore. I'm interested in this note from Chargers.com though. Cardale Jones, who was on Alabama back in the day, I want to say, looked really good last week, finishing 10 of 14 for 111 yards and a touchdown, pass rating of 118.5. I didn't love him coming out of school. I didn't feel like he was a very accurate passer, but at a certain point, we have to believe that Phillip Rivers can't keep having, more children and not be allowed to come home, right? He's got to start chipping in for child watch at some point. And at some point he's going to start having, hundreds of grandkids. So, they need to start thinking about a post Phillip Rivers life. Maybe Cardale Jones could be that guy. At wide receiver, they've been Mike Williams, Travis Benjamin, which, by the way, I love having a Mike Williams on the team because there is and has been so many of them at wide receiver. I literally have no idea who you're talking about when you talk about wide receiver and Mike Williams. There's dozens of guys it could be. Outside of those top three, just like with everybody else, lots of questions. Who's going to step up going late into this game? That's what you're going to want to keep your eye on, though, is who is getting the targets late in the game. So, who do they want to see more from, and if they're taking advantage of that. On the flip side, they lost basically all of their linebackers, the Chargers, last year due to injury. So it's going to be a question of if the young guys can step up. Drew Tranquill, Kazir White, are they going to be factors? That's something to watch for on the defensive side of the ball. When the Seahawks take the field, Pete Carroll historically plays the starters past the second half for a serious kind of quarterback. So hopefully we'll see more out of them. My hopes and dreams took a bit of a hit last week when right before game time, they announced that DK Metcalf was not going to play and that he was actually having an operation done on his knee. Reports from that came back that there really wasn't anything structurally wrong with there. They just did a little bit of cleanup, and his recovery time should be really, really quick. I think for the most part, it's just making sure that the cut, the incision is healed up enough to not tear open and tear out his stitches. So we'll probably see him again on week 1. There is some increasing talk. I spoke previously about Shaquille Griffin and his evolving role on the team. There's some building buzz that Shaquem Griffin, who is one of the best stories in the NFL, who everybody knows lost his hand as a child due to amniotic band syndrome. He may be on the bubble at this point. He needs to really, really rush the passer well and play great teams in order to make this roster. Which is a shame because he's somebody, even if I wasn't a Seahawks fan, I would be rooting for just because of what he's overcome to get to where he is today. So we'll see what happens there. Rashad Penny didn't look great last week, which is a real shame out of a first round running back. I would like to see more out of him, but again, I don't care that much about running backs per se. But you spend that much draft capital on somebody, you want to see something out of them. And then on special teams, I just want to point out that we have the most entertaining punter in the world right now in Michael Dixon. In a recent interview, they asked him what he does on the sideline when he's not kicking. He says he mostly tries to figure out what's going on. The person interviewing him asked is if that is because he doesn't know how football works. And he said, yeah, partially. A lot of fun there. He's a converted Aussie rules football player. It's not like we expect him to be able to do much. I mean, if soccer players can make 55-yard kicks, no reason we can't have an Aussie punting for us.
Good point.
So there you have it. If you do see him, he's fun to watch. He's really, really good and has a weird kicking motion. So, exciting punter in the league.
All right. So we finally made it to the final game of week 3. And it happens to be a Sunday night football game. 8 p.m. NBC Nissan Stadium, the Pittsburgh Steelers at Tennessee Titans. Real quickly, before I get to the game, Joan Jett returning to the theme song, along with everybody's favorite sweetheart. What's her name there? Why in the world? Carrie Underwood. My goodness. I'm sitting here looking at a picture of her. I can't think of her name. Carrie Underwood and Joan Jett.
Save that for after the show.
Do a duet.
I don't recall.
Going back to the original theme for Sunday Night Football, which was based on Joan Jett's "I Hate Myself for Loving You." Apparently, there's some sort of lawsuit still going on about the theme song that they instituted last year. Yeah, whatever. Right? The theme song for Sunday Night Football. Who cares? Pittsburgh Steelers. Greg writes in, Big Ben is playing. Don't blink. Otherwise, really excited to watch the secondary, especially Cameron Kelly, who's from the defunct AAF. Only 23, has really taken his chance and ran with it. He's a lock for the roster. The backup quarterback battle between Josh Dobbs and Mason Rudolph has been really interesting. Mason has really impressed Greg with his pocket awareness. Dobbs has been athletic and exciting to watch. Both should make the roster, which kind of sucks if they're both going to make the roster. It's not really a roster battle other than who gets the first shot if Big Ben gets hurt. Jordan writes in on offense. A.J. Brown needs more reps. He finally played last week, but only for a series. Drew a long pass interference, which was good. Like to see him actually catch the ball. Offensive line, that's been the common theme. How about Derrick Henry? He hasn't played yet. Don't know if he's going to. Be nice to know if he's healthy. Jonnu Smith has been activated off the PUP. So now it'll be interesting to watch the Titans' 2 tight end sets. On defense, Harold Landry, Cameron Wake. They have not played yet. They're the main 2 pass rushers. Wake is understandable since he's old. Doesn't need to play. Landry does need some reps. Vrabel has indicated it was strategical to hold him out, but not injury related. Not sure if that's true or not. Adoree Jackson versus Juju should be fun. Former teammates at USC, best friends. That's probably the most entertaining matchup of this game. Otherwise, just don't want to see any injuries. Sleeper guy, Sharif Finch, mentioned him in a preseason game preview last year when he was an undrafted rookie. Now he's a legit rotational player. Assuming Wake and or Landry don't play, Finch will get opportunities in this game. Would love to see some pressure out of him. So there you go. Interesting game there on Sunday Night Football between the Titans and the Steelers. Like we said, this is stuff that you should be watching. You're not watching to see who wins. Defensively, most teams are playing sort of vanilla defenses. They don't want to tip their hand as to what they're going to be doing during the regular season. Same thing on offense. Shouldn't really be seeing any gadget plays or anything like that. And unlike previous years, this year you may not even see starters in your week 3 preseason game, which only goes to make that 18-game schedule that's being proposed and being fought against seem more and more like common sense. Let's play 18 real games, and for 2 or 3 weeks before the season actually begins, let's do joint practices. Seems to me like you're going to get a lot more roster identification, and you're just going to get a lot more enjoyment out of the game of football.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree there.
All right. Well, you can disagree on another show because I can go bring my son to his high school football practice. If you'd like to get in touch with us or disagree with me, send in those emails, nextfanup@gmail.com. You can tweet us at NFU Podcast, facebook.com/NFU Podcast, Instagram, nextfanup. We'll talk to you next week. We might be a day earlier next week. Keep tuned to your social medias to find out if that's true. Or, of course, if you're subscribed anywhere great podcasts are heard, you'll get your podcast a day early anyway, and you don't even have to worry about looking at your social medias. But in any case, here's Andy Dalton. There you have it.
I never even heard his interview, so I don't know the context in which it was said. I don't know what he said before. I don't know what he said after. So I still haven't seen it. I'm not going to watch it. I don't care, But, I've got no ill will towards Jay. There's no feud between me and Jay. I think we lost the game. He said what he said, and we're moving on. That's in the past now.